Good morning and welcome to my September update for my California native plant garden in the Central Sierra Nevada foothills. This is the garden that I planted this year in January, February. I can't quite remember. I think it was right around January that we put this garden in. So this is at month 9. A little review of how things are going. I was planning to do an update that included more information about how the garden was planned in the first place and almost kind of do a retrospective about how each of those initial decisions did or did not pan out. But I think I will probably wait until October to do that, just because I don't really have the time right now. So this is the update. This is just a beautiful little view of all of the tarweed. Again, the tarweed was not planted here. This is native to the area, and it just pops up and people pull it out. It's sticky and it clings to your skin if you touch it. It's almost water repellent. When you go in the shower, the water just kind of runs off of you if you've been working around tarweed, and then you have to use soap to sort of break the chemical bonds or whatever that make it up. But it smells so good to me. Some people hate the smell. I don't know why. It's not musky. It's really sweet and yeah, almost melony. It reminds me of melon, like a musk melon. That's what it kind of reminds me of, which has the word musk in it. But and I just said it's not musky, it's musk melony. So anywho, yeah, it just popped up here. We have this little carved out area where eventually I'm going to put river rock and weed barrier, and it'll be kind of a dry stream bed. So this won't be here next year if we get that done, which is kind of a bummer, because it's created this incredible show of color that has sort of, after everything else sort of went to sleep for the year, the tarweed has just been amazing. So anyway, all right, let's start over here at the beginning, kind of where we usually do. So over here, we have, of course, the hummingbird sages. The big story over here has been Bermuda grass. Over the past month to month and a half, I've been waging a war on the Bermuda grass. There's a pretty big colony here under this black trash bag, which I just, every week, a couple times a week, I come out here and I pull anything that I can see, because it's perpetually just trying to get through the cardboard and through the wood shavings. And I just scan the area. I'm just trying to hold the line. All of the places where I've currently removed the Bermuda grass, I'm trying to prevent it from returning. See here, we can see it returning. It always returns. So let's see. And I'm hoping that if I just keep at it, if I keep pulling it as it comes back, eventually the rhizomes, the underground rhizomes, will peter out if they don't get any solar energy. That may be a pipe dream. Those of you who've dealt with deer grass, you might wonder if I'm being silly, or you might know that I'm being silly and there's really no way to win. I don't know. We're still gonna try. So there we go. So this is essentially just pieces of the rhizome that, when I pulled it out previously, I just left little pieces of the rhizome in there, and eventually they'll sprout, give away their location, then I come in to finish the job. That is the theory. So that's what we've got. Wasn't here yesterday. So interesting stuff. And that all just goes in this bucket, and then eventually it goes in that black trash bag. And from there, Maybe it goes into the fire pit. Okay, so yeah, I've been waging that war against the Bermuda grass, and over here I finally did come in and liberate my elderberry. This whole area was full of weeds not too long ago, and I came in and took out all of the. It was mostly a native sedge that had populated this area, but there was some Bermuda grass here as well, and there's some Bermuda grass creeping up the hill. And then I came out over here and I started removing it in this area. So this is where we lost a hummingbird sage. So we lost one hummingbird sage here. Here's one of those native sedges. I left the root in there. That's not great. Oh, look. This guy died really early in the season. That wasn't here at all. I don't know how it got over here. But you can see I've removed all of the Bermuda grass from this area right up to that line. So there's still one hummingbird sage that has not been liberated, which shockingly is blooming. I had no idea that they could possibly bloom this late in the season, but there you go. Surprises all the time. So hummingbird sage is doing fine. A lot of them, all of them pretty much are spreading, which was the plan, which was the objective. And you can see here, this one has multiple shoots, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one has way more, including some really tiny little pups over here. This one has lots of shoots. This one's done probably the best. So I'm really excited to get in there and liberate this one from the hummingbird sage. In fact, this spike, I think, is on a pup. I think this was the original plant over here, and this might have been a runner that came off of that initial plant, which might explain why it's blooming so late, because it's earlier in its development. Interesting. Okay. Over here we have the snowberry. So last month I went in and I put a much bigger cage around the snowberry. This is my favorite plant, high elevation plant. Love this guy. And it's done much better. So a lot less nibbling, a lot less deer foraging on its leaves, and just looks really great. And gave it a much wider cage. It was growing through the previous cage. I'm interested to see how big it could actually get, if it could get high enough to where the deer wouldn't be able to reach it. I don't think it can. So this is probably always going to be protected. And there are very few plants that I'm willing to do that with, because I don't want a garden that's all caged up. But this is probably one of them, just because I love these things so much. And maybe someday I can find a less ugly way to keep the deer from eating it. But right now that's what we got. This is the radiant manzanita, which I have given up on. So these are two deer repellent things. This is absolutely an incorrect place to plant a manzanita. Well, really, I think the truth is we can't grow ground cover manzanitas here because the deer will eat them. Any manzanita that we plant needs to get big enough that animals are not going to eat it. I don't think this thing's ever going to really have a good life here. So yeah, next year we're probably going to do something else in this spot. This is the coffee berry, another one that I didn't put a new cage down, but I did put this topper on this little cage because it's not tall enough to where you know, it's growing up through here, and this will prevent the deer from getting in there for now. Maybe next year it'll need a bigger cage, but yeah, since we did that, this thing is definitely doing much better. I'm pretty happy with that. This was this was coyote brush, which was supposed to be nearly indestructible, and it self-destructed about 2 months ago, so that one didn't make it. Over here, this was originally a spice bush, which died, and then I came in and replaced it with this ceanothus Ray Hartman, and then the Ray Hartman got eaten completely. It was completely destroyed. And so I came in here and put this big cage around it, and then it seemed to be doing better, but growth is slow here, so I'm not sure how this guy's gonna do. It could just be that it was really set back first by the transplant and then by the complete immolation, or immolation implies it was burned. It was not burned, it was consumed, consumption. Anyway, so then over here we have, this was the California buckeye. I still don't know if it's dormant or if it is dead. We will find out next spring. And if it is dead, maybe plant another one. Don't know. This is a California fuchsia, which I refuse to cage because I've done enough caging, but it sprouts leaves. It's nearly indestructible from the sense that it has absolutely no right to still be alive because it has been eaten completely over and over and over again, but it is still alive, which is shocking. It won't be for long because I'm not going to cage it. And that's what it is. This is the Toyon, which has finally started to do stuff. It was, there we go. It was, it's a late arrival, I suppose you could say. Not a late arrival, it went in at the same time as everything else, but it didn't really do anything for much of the season. And now it actually looks like it's kind of growing, which is great. This could be a great big huge tree-like bush eventually, and that's what we're hoping for. This is the Artemisia tridentata, the California sagebrush. And yeah, it looks like, I mean, it looks okay. I'm not sure what this yellowing is about on the leaves. I'm hoping I didn't overwater it. Getting the water regime correct has continued to be a challenge. Over here, the California buckwheat, which is so beautiful. I love these flowers, but the deer eat it immediately. So all of the flowers that you can see, the flowers have just been completely eaten off the top. I don't know if I want to put like a great big cage around all of the California buckwheat, because I've got 3 of them here. I don't know. I'm just so sick of the deer. I can't deal with it anymore. Here's our woolly sunflower, and this was a late season plant that came in June, and it's done okay. It's really low to the ground, and I'm not sure if that's because it's being grazed on or if that's just what it likes to do in the heat of the summer. It looked a lot different when we put it in. It was more upright, and now it's gone. It's done this sort of low growing thing, so that's interesting. We'll see what it does next spring. It is certainly extremely woolly. It was not this woolly earlier in the season. It might just, maybe this is what it does. Like as the heat goes up, it just gets more fuzzy to try to protect itself from water loss. This is a deer grass, which looks great. I did plant these sedges. These are native California field sedges, which was a mistake. I'm gonna pull those out next year because they are spreading, and I kind of looked under the ground on a couple of them, and they're extremely woody rhizomes under the ground. So those are gonna come out. Here's another look at my California, my blue elderberry. Looks great. So here we lost a Salvia gracias, a gracias sage. Still don't know exactly why, but that one's already been pulled out. This is our behemoth gracias. Got 4 Salvia gracias here. This is the one that has grown massively huge. I see there's an explosion of native sedges just to the north of it, which I need to deal with. Here's another Salvia gracias. This is one that's doing a little bit like what that one had done. I don't know if it's overwatering or underwatering. Either way, it's a water problem, most certainly. I suspect that, I don't know, we're kind of on a granite shelf here, and I don't really know how much soil there is down here, which means that some of these plants, unless, depending on like the depth of the soil where they're planted, they may or may not retain enough water to stay moist. And what that means is, like, if this guy's like planted strategically in sort of a crack between the well, okay, let's say this guy is maybe this guy's like in like a crack in between two sort of big chunks of granite. It's possible that this spot retains too much water, so the roots start to rot, and then it shows signs of water loss because it can't get enough water because its roots have rotted. Let's say theoretically the opposite could be true for this guy. Maybe here the shelf is too narrow, it's too close to the surface, and so there's not enough space for soil to gather to retain water. So maybe this dries out too fast, and maybe this one actually did just desiccate. So I feel like it's possible that without like some sort of ground penetrating radar, there's no way to know until we just test each spot if it's in sort of the Goldilocks zone where you have good drainage and good water retention. So I don't know, this spot seems to be fine. This is another gracias. This guy's going up, which is interesting. This one is definitely very close to the ground. This one has a little bit of height on it, which is interesting. That right there, that was the Dara's Choice sage, which died early in the season. There was another Dara's Choice right there, which also died. I lost both Dara's Choice. I also lost a Dara's Choice last year. Clearly not a good investment. This is our volunteer blue oak. Love that guy. Continues to kill it. Put drip on that, which you're not supposed to do because theoretically that makes their roots stay too close to the surface, but I don't care. We're just gonna try it and see what happens. I've done the opposite many times for blue oaks that have popped up in my garden, and all have died when I didn't water them. So this one has done incredibly well. I've never seen a blue oak grow that much in 1 year. California poppy. This is shocking that this guy is still green. I think this is the only poppy that's still green. Clearly, for whatever reason, the ground squirrels didn't get at this. They still could. So I'm not going to get attached. But it must have gotten a root system deep enough to stay green, to get down there and find the water so that it could continue to grow in the summer, which not a single other poppy I've ever had has done. Deer grass, doing great. Again, there's that Dara's Choice that didn't make it. This is Penstemon pseudospectabilis. They seem to finally be doing, I've got two of those, one here and one there. Earlier in the season, I was kind of frustrated by how like leggy they were. They just kind of spread out, and they don't go, and they weren't going up. They were just kind of trailing along the ground, and I've seen other ones where they go up. But there seem to be finally creating some structure. There's a lot of new greenery in the center, which is pretty pleasing, and it's a really vibrant, lovely green. This is the ceanothus skylark? I think this is ceanothus skylark. And this is awesome. I love this ceanothus, but it does continue to get eaten. So it grows a little bit and then people nibble on it. And I think if we want this to really get height, I'm gonna have to cage it. I hate that idea, but I might do it because because the ceanothus can get tall enough to avoid the deer. So who knows, maybe we'll cage it next year. So again, there's that Penstemon pseudospectabilis. This is the big story. The white sage died. I don't know why. I think it was either overwatering, or it could possibly have been a combination of overwatering with the fact that there's this ground squirrel living right at its base. Or maybe white sages just hate my guts. So that's what it is. This is the Penstemon GMR White, which went in June and is doing shockingly well for a plant that was planted that late in the season. Has no right to look this good, and really likes the water. So every time I water, it's kind of a happy camper. It's a stunted deer grass. This one has struggled all year. I don't know why. Oh, there's a poppy there too. Or no, is that a poppy? I don't know what that is. This is the Salvia Celestial Blue. So this is the Celestial Blue Sage, and it continues to bloom, and that's just wild that it's been blooming this long. I've never seen that before. I've never seen them bloom so late into this season, and this one's just been an absolute rock star. Love it. There's another deer grass there. It's the monkey flower, where earlier in the season something else died. This is some sort of an annual plant, some sort of a phlox that came out of a seed packet. This is Winifred Gilman sage, which we planted in June to replace a different sage here that died. I did eventually get control of the irrigation system so that it doesn't spray this whole area, which once I did get control of the irrigation system, it caused all this turkey mullein to die, because all this turkey mullein was really subsisting on the excessive water that was coming off of the irrigation system. So I need to come in here and pull all this turkey mullein. But also there was a black sage right there that died, and there was a starlight sage right here that died because of the excessive water that was coming off of this system. So now that that's fixed, I've got this Winifred Gilman here, seems to be happy. That of course is a starlight sage. That's a Pozo blue sage. They're both doing great. This starlight in particular is, see, this is what, for some reason, first starlights do really good for me on their first year. My second year starlight up there on the hill is not doing as good, so we'll see how this one does next year. I feel like they get too big for their own good, and then you can't get them enough water. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. I don't think it is. Could just be that there's not enough soil underneath them to support their size. And this is the Monica manzanita, which looks great. It's been a really slow grower, but most manzanitas are. Yeah, we'll see how much height we can get. Love to see it hit the top of this thing by the end of this season. I don't know if there's still time in this season for it to do that. And then we'll give it a bigger cage next year, and who knows, maybe in year 3 or 4 it will actually be tall enough to where the deer won't be able to eat it. That would be great. All right, so those are the plants that I planted in January of 2023 and what they look like today. In October, maybe I will do a video kind of summarizing all of the, like, how I diagrammed this whole thing, and kind of updating you on all the plants that didn't make it, some of the lessons learned. Although I don't know that there really are. I think there are lessons learned that I can share, but everything has to be taken with a grain of salt to remember that every single yard is different. there's a lot of peculiarities about this yard. I have, for example, I could say Salvia gracias does great in Central California. And the Central California, I could even say Salvia gracias does great in the Central California Sierra Nevada foothills at 1,700 feet. And you'd think, oh, that's very specific, right? But let's think about the peculiarities of this space. This area is shaded from the sun, and this area used to be a Bermuda grass lawn last year. So there's cardboard, it's covered with Bermuda grass underneath. I have a drainage system that absolutely fills this area with water in the wintertime, and it continues to be extremely, much moister in this area than it would be anywhere else in my yard for the rest of the year. There's a lot of soil here that retains water and a lot of clay. There's a lot of clay soil all the way up to here. And then right as you get out of the clay, soil becomes better, but you may or may not hit granite 3 to 4 inches down, which is that granite shelf, right? So you have no idea if you have 4 inches of soil or if you have 48 inches of soil or no soil or, just a ton of soil. You don't know if it's going to be too wet or not wet enough. And it's just, there's a lot of conflating factors. There's also the seasonality of this year. It was extremely wet this winter, so wet. And then this year we had some pretty hot days, and we had a pretty mild summer too, which probably caused some of the plants to rot, which is different than it would have been last year. Last year I would have told you all about desiccation, and that would have been the central story. And the takeaway from last year, if I'd done this, would have been water the crap out of everything. Make sure that you have a system in place that's really low maintenance so you can turn it on and walk away. Everybody gets 20 gallons of water overnight. And do that once a week. That would have been my takeaway last year. If I'd implemented that takeaway this year, several more plants would have rotted than I already did. And also that lesson that I learned last year gave me a little bit of a false understanding about how to water. I was thinking I need to make it low maintenance so that, and I'm just going to put everything in and everything's going to get watered the same. And if it doesn't like being watered the same, then it's not going to be a good fit. That sounds great that, on paper, okay, I'm just going to walk away from anything that dies and be like, fine, I guess I can't grow white sage, right? But in reality, I really like that white sage and I would like to see it survive. So next year I probably will plant more white sage and try out a little something different, which is probably going to be still keep it on the irrigation line because I can't hand water in my life. I don't have that kind of time. But swap out the emitter for like a 1/2 gallon per hour emitter so that it's getting 1/4 of the water as everything else. So maybe that's what we'll do. First things first though, we have to win this battle against the Bermuda grass. All right, I guess that's it.